All right, welcome. On today's episode, we're here with Poonam Chhipwadia, an investment advisor. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. It's great to be here.
So could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what your day in a life looks like?
Sure. Well, my days are always very crazy, mostly because of my 3 kids, not necessarily because of the investment advisor role that I'm in. But a little bit about me, I've been doing this about 28 years, so straight out of high school. I went into internships while I was taking classes. And then when I graduated, one of the companies that I was interning with, I went ahead and went on board with them. And I've been in this role pretty much ever since then, and of course I have 3 kids and a husband, a spouse in the military. So all of those things keep me pretty busy. And my days basically are filled with everything from dropping off kids to then going straight to meeting with clients, and also training appointments to learn about whatever's new in the industry. Going back to the office, working on plans for the clients, and then, of course, just the regular evening routine.
Yeah, that's so cool. So you mentioned your clients. Can you tell us a little bit about what type of clients you have and how their financial goals differ?
Yeah, sure. When I first started out in the industry, most of my clients were government employees, and they were NASA contractors because I started my career in Houston. And the office that I worked out of, it was right by Johnson Space Center. So our entire community was just filled with engineers and scientists and people in the space community. So most of my clients were kind of in that field. And as I moved to Austin and started my expansion here into Austin, most of my clients they went from that employees to then being more entrepreneurial and in the startup space. So I've had a lot to learn over the years, to go from learning about people that are employees that have a boss that go into work and go into the office to then trying to work with clients who have their own businesses and helping them formulate plans for themselves.
So I guess what inspired you to pursue your career path then?
Well, actually, I was going to be an accountant. Early on, I was going to be a doctor. Well, and when I say early on, I mean all the way up until 9th or 10th grade.
Wow, yeah.
Until I took my first biology class and had to dissect something. I was thinking that I was going to go into medicine. It was something I really wanted to do, had a lot of curiosity for. And then, of course, I learned very quickly that I was not cut out for that, doing labs in that class. And so I'm just thankful that I knew early on that I ruled it out very early. And then, of course, being Asian, the backup choice was maybe something in engineering. So I took an engineering calculus class the next year and found out very quickly that also wasn't for me. So then I took some accounting courses, and that was very interesting, and, accounting, economics. And then, of course, I was, early on, I was thinking that I wanted to become a CPA. Mostly it was the money that was motivating me. I heard that CPAs could make a very good living. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. And then an uncle of mine introduced me to financial services instead, and he let me talk to his financial advisor, and he taught me about compound interest and investing and how money could grow. And immediately I was just turned on by the whole field. I didn't know anything about finances early on, growing up. I didn't even know how a credit card worked. I didn't know how my parents made any of their money, being, first generation Americans, right? So what really made me want to go into financial services was I knew that especially the immigrant community had a lack of education, or had zero education about how to make their money work. I feel like that's a community that works very hard, and they're very disciplined about saving their money. They're very good about working hard for their money, but not letting their money work hard for them. So that's what inspired me to get into financial services, because I knew our communities needed the knowledge I also knew that there were some bad actors in my space that weren't necessarily doing right by our community. So that's kind of what inspired me to come into financial services.
So when you got into financial, were you in high school still, or were you like in college?
It was a summer between my junior and senior year in high school when I started going down the path of finance and thinking maybe this is a career I could be in. And of course, like, the parents were like, hold on, you went from wanting to be a doctor to being an engineer and then accounting, and now what is this finance thing that you're talking about? Are you just going to be working at a bank? What is it? And I said, I'm not sure yet, but I will let you know when I find out. And so so it was between the junior and senior years of high school that I started exploring. And the further I got into economics, and there were some other classes that I took, but I kind of just knew that this was going to be the field for me.
Yeah. So you did mention that like you first wanted to be like a doctor and engineer. That's actually exactly like me too.
Yeah.
Like when I was very little, I wanted to be a doctor, and my parents were like really supporting me too, encouraging me to do so. So when you first like mentioned that you were gonna go to a completely different field, or how are their reactions?
Maybe I think my dad was more chill about it, and because he too was an accountant, and that's what he studied, and then my mom, I think she just wanted like one kid to be a doctor, maybe. Unfortunately, we both failed her, but I think she was hoping that, because at that time, like, the field of medicine, I mean, it's still a prestigious field, but especially back, we're talking like 25, 30 years ago, it just brought so much reputation and prestige to families, right? So I think she was kind of hoping that we would do it through medicine. And I think she's kind of glad that we're not in medicine now, but at the time, like, she was kind of on the fence. We really had to prove ourselves to her that we could do this and make a great living out of it and have a great life with it. So,
did you ever have a time when you were like, oh, I should have chosen a more traditional career?
No.
That's good, yeah.
I wish I could. I mean, don't get me wrong. Not that a career in finance has been just rosy all the time. There are times early on I wanted to quit every day. But I never, the other thing that I kind of did know was that I couldn't have a boss. That there was a real problem with authority.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't going to work out. Like, if I couldn't have a flexible schedule, and especially, I met my husband, very young, when I was only 21 and just starting out my career. And he, of course, had a career where he has to be there certain times. And so if it was going to work out with him, one of us had to have a career that was flexible. So that's what I really enjoyed about financial services, is that a lot of times I could meet my clients in the evening, still spend time with him. We could enjoy being newlyweds, all of those things, and it wasn't taxing on the marriage. So that's what I really liked about financial services. Now, when you're green in the business, and sometimes you'll get questions that you don't know anything about, and you don't know how to still look competent when you're answering client questions. Some of those days were kind of rough early on, but after some experience set in, and it was probably a good 5 years of learning things and kind of drinking from a fire hose as far as learning goes, that I finally felt good about what I was doing, and didn't want to. I had fewer days where I wanted to quit.
Yeah. That's good.
That's good. Yeah. Since you became a financial advisor, have you noticed any improvements in like the inclusion of diversity?
Yes, very much so. So currently with the firm, with my firm, when I started in the company, there was about 20% of us were women in financial services. Currently, 60% of all of our new agents are women.
Oh, that's great.
So we always joke, that we're gonna have to start. We had like special sessions for women, but now we joke that we're gonna start having special sessions for the men. So, but yeah, there have been improvements, and we still have more work to do, because it's still a system that was created by fewer women. The system that we're working in, it was a system where there was only 20% women when I first started, right? Mm-hmm. So some of those old things are still in place, and we're working in them. And now what we're doing is trying to reshape things so that it still gets to be a friendlier career for us too, or more inclusive career for us.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that a lot of your clients that you meet end up being those of Asian backgrounds?
I would say since I moved to Austin, probably I probably have a more diverse book of clients now, because in the entrepreneurial space, there's a lot of Asians in that community too, right? So I would say probably at least half of everything I've done in the last 10 years is a minority background or Asian background. Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
So your parents were like not 100% sure like what the like financial services entail. Do people have common misconceptions about what you do that like now is like way off?
Yeah. So I feel that most Asian parents, they believe in putting their money in just a few things, right? Life insurance is one place where they really like to invest. Yes. Like they really think that is gonna be their golden ticket into retirement. Real estate's another one. Commodities or some kind of like specialized sector. They're always looking for the next best thing. I feel like our community, like they're very competitive with each other. Like they'll meet, there's tons of social functions. And so whenever they're at the water cooler or whatever, or the punch bowl or whatever you want to call it at these functions, there's a couple of things that they talk about: the weather and finances, or what their investments are doing. Right. Mm-hmm. And then of course they'll start thinking that somebody else is getting a better return on their investment than they are, and so in their minds immediately go to work trying to find the next best thing, right? And I think that's the misconception, is that they think that the next best thing is what's going to make them wealthy, but in reality it's just slow and steady, consistent, disciplined investing that's going to get them to wealth and into retirement and to peace of mind. Ultimately, that's what the goal is. It's not, for them to become rich overnight, right? Yeah. So that's the biggest misconception, is that there's some golden ticket out there that's going to make them rich overnight.
Yeah,
I see. So if you could like give one advice to like people with this misconception, what kind of like advice would you give them?
I would say the first thing I would tell them is that if they hear that someone became, super wealthy overnight, it's a very rare thing. And that there were probably many failures before they hit that one, before they struck that kind of luck. And so I would say that, to be disciplined, to start saving early, and to just be disciplined about it, and to not look to, just stay in your own lane, not look left or right, just stay in your own lane, focus on the journey that you're on with your money, and stay with that. Don't get off course because of something that you hear, So that's probably the best advice that I could give anyone, whether they're young or old.
So I don't really know a lot about like financial advice, but like, do you have like a long-standing relationship? Like, do you meet with over a couple of years, or how does that look like?
I definitely meet with my clients a few times a year, or as much as needed. Usually there's some clients that will text me like late at night, and ask for things, ask for an update, things like that. So most of my clients, they're going to hear from me at least if I don't hear from them, I'm at least going to call them once a quarter, unless they are busy doing something else, but my thing is I want to hear from them or talk to them at least once a quarter, if not more often or as needed. But it has to be, in order to keep them disciplined, especially during turbulent times. Every human, no matter how mentally tough they are, and no matter how many dips in the markets they've seen, there's always at least one moment of, oh my gosh, is it going to go any lower? And so it's during those moments that we definitely are, my team and I were definitely in touch with all of our clients, and we keep an ongoing relationship with them.
So would you say your job does involve kind of like emotion and like both mental, physical?
Oh yeah, I would say that's 90% of it. The math and putting solutions together, that's probably the easiest part. I would say just holding people's hands through the process is most of where the work comes in. Is just keeping people on track, reassuring them that things will be okay, and just helping them stay on track with their plan is probably the biggest responsibility that we have.
Oh, wow.
I'm sure that ends up being super cool to look at your client's progress.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any stories you can share about one time that you completely transformed someone and helped them?
Well, one that comes to mind immediately is I had a couple, and they were on the West Coast. So as you know, housing is very expensive on the West Coast, right? And he was coming up on retirement, and his wife didn't want to move from the house that they were in. So, he had a sizable amount that he was coming into for retirement, having worked for a government contractor for about 50 years over his career, right? So he was going to come into a pretty decent pension, but because they're on the West Coast, they were thinking that they wouldn't get to maintain their lifestyle in their current home, that they'd have to move from that home. And that was the home that they raised all their children in, and those types of things. So they had a lot of memories there in that neighborhood and in that home. And we were able to, just by doing some minor restructuring, we were able to get them to a point, because we started about 5 years prior to retirement, we were able to get them to a point where we grew their funds, and then the drawdown from their funds was going to be more than what they needed to sustain the home as well.
That's so nice.
Yeah. So the best news wasn't the amount of money that was in the account. It wasn't that. The best news was, hey, you can stay in your home now, you know? And they're like, really, for how long? And I was like, forever. You can stay in your home for as, if you want to live to be 200, you'll still be able to afford your house, So that was one of my favorite moments. There's great stories with each and every client, but that's one that really comes to mind, because that it just lit up the entire family when we told them that they're going to get to keep that home, and even their kids were excited because they get to come back to their childhood home too. So that was pretty neat.
So where do you hope to be in 5 to 10 years?
Where do I hope to be? I hope to be mentoring a lot more young people in the business. I kind of put that on hold for the time being, not because it's not something I want to do, but with having a junior and a senior back to back, and then a little one, I have many more years to go with him, but with just getting those two out the door and off to college, it's been a little bit of, I think the mental space that I need to raise other people in my business is what I use for parenting. So right now, that part of me is sort of occupied. But I think in 5 to 10 years, I think I would love, once my kids, my youngest gets to be a little more independent, what I want then is to kind of fulfill that part of me that does mentor my kids right now. So I would want to mentor other advisors then, to avoid some of the pitfalls that I had early on, and to just to teach them thing, just to teach them how to be very effective with their craft.
Yeah.
So that's where I want to be, is training a large team of advisors.
That's cool.
Do you have like a specific advice that you would give to someone who's wanting to go into like a financial advisor?
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, I wanted to quit every day early on, right? I couldn't think of what else I wanted to do at that time, but on my toughest days, I did question if this is what I should be doing. And I always somehow came back to it. And so I think that's one, I guess, one warning I would kind of give to them is, hey, you may want to quit, but stick with it. So it's very rewarding it's very rewarding if you can get past the point of, if you can get through the period of time that's kind of difficult, then you will do well at this as long as you just stick with it. Most people quit industries like mine just before they're about to get great at it, just before it gets easy is when they give up on it. Mm-hmm. And so that's probably the biggest advice I could give them is don't give up, just keep working and studying and learning your craft and learning different scenarios, learning different things in your field. Like I said, I'm in finance, but I also have to learn many things in the accounting field and build those relationships as well where my blind spots are. So, that takes a little while to build up. And so the biggest advice I think I could give anyone, like I said, is just not give up. Just keep going.
Yeah. I know a lot of like Asian people, when they're deciding career paths, they're like, oh, how much money can I make? Like, how did you know I'm successful in my career? Like, is it just about the income, or have you found like other ways?
If it were just about income, I mean, I can make this kind of income other places, right? But for me, it was very important that I didn't have to compromise family values. And I'm able to do that with this. So I can still raise my kids. I can still show up for what they need. And as you girls know, the schools that you've attended, they have a lot of parental involvement, right? So there were lots of things that I wanted to be there for, field trips. And also my kids have always volunteered me first for things like that. And so, and I've never had to tell them no. I've always been able to show up for, and I've even last minute, there have been times where I've been able to show up for whatever the school needed for me or whatever certain committees needed from me. I've been able to do all of those things and spend a lot of time with my kids as they were, as they've been growing up. So that was extremely important early on in my career. My parents, like just when I was really starting to take off, both of my parents went through this 5 to 7 year period where they had some major health issues, and they're great now. Like we got them all new body parts now, but they went through this period where they had some major things that they were dealing with, and I was able to tend to them as well and still maintain a career. So during those times, I sometimes felt like I was falling behind because I wasn't as ahead as some of my colleagues were. Your mind starts playing tricks on you because you feel like you're not accomplishing what you need to, or that you should be, by a certain age, you should be at a certain level. And then a few years went by, and then when I moved here, I had just had my youngest son, and that was 9 years ago, right? So when I moved here, I was able to expand, start my own office here, and just kind of pick up where I left off with a newborn. And that's when I realized that is success. When you can do that,
that's good.
And not, you don't have to miss anything. You can actually pause to have your children and to raise them, and you can pause for whatever your family's needs are, for your parents' health. Then that's a career worth having, And also on the military side, so many military spouses struggle with maintaining a career because they're having to relocate a lot of times, or they just don't have like the enough time to have the consistency it takes to build a career, right? So all of those are ways that I feel blessed. And I feel like if you can take care of things on the home front and then still have a career, then that's a career. That's what success is. If it's the other way around, where you can have a career, but it's at a great detriment to your family, then that'll last for a little while. Like sometimes things do get out of balance, but it's very difficult to maintain that over a long period of time, right? So, and I think we as women definitely feel more regrets on the home front, like it's kind of ridiculous how we are sometimes, because like for Abby, for example, like if I don't take him the perfect box of cookies for one of his parties, and things like that, like those are all things that we get bent out of shape about, right? But so we carry a lot of guilt, and then that way, if we're not able to do some of these big things on the home front, then it really messes with us, with our careers, right? So success to me, to sum it up, is definitely being able to have a career that works for your family, not the other way around.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I know a lot of moms, like, when they get their children, they tend to, like, give up their jobs because they can't balance their time between, like, parenting and also their own jobs. So it's really amazing that you get to, like, balance out between the two.
I was gonna ask, like, you mentioned that a lot of your clients have been, like, Asian American. Do you ever feel like they're, like, more comfortable with you because you know, like, where their family's coming from? Or have you felt, like, the opposite way when you're talking to someone that's not of your same, like, ethnicity, where you're like, oh, I can't relate, or, like, they feel like they can't relate to you?
I do think some Asian families feel better about talking to. It's more of a language thing, because if you can speak the language, then they feel more comfortable with you. Like, and because anything you can articulate to them in their mother tongue, that's going to make them immediately have more of a connection with you, and they're gonna, I don't know, maybe have like just a more positive experience because they feel like finally someone can explain something to them in a way that they can understand. It's still a little difficult because I grew up here. So my, I'm not as good with my mother tongue as, like, say, someone that grew up in India, or in Gujarat, where we're from. But I've gotten better over the years because they have molded me. Those clients have definitely made me speak my mother tongue better. So, but yeah, they definitely feel more comfortable. Maybe not just because we're from the same place, but more because of the language.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. My parents, like, are not fluent in English either, so they always want to, like, go for someone who can also speak, like, fluent Korean to get better communication. Yes. Do you have, like, a way of talking or working with clients who aren't maybe fluent in English as their first language, or?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, no matter who we're in front of, right? No matter who we're in front of, they really just, if there was a direct line, like, from my heart to their heart, they just want to know that line is somehow there. Even if you come from, like, the most opposite cultures, right? If you can just build the human connection first, then they can talk about everything. What I've found is that people think about their finances more than they think about anything. Unless they have some life-threatening situation they're dealing with, then money's the last thing. But I feel like that is what it takes for them to think about their money last, is some, like, near-death, life or death experience sort of thing that they're going through, Otherwise, money is, like, the thing that's on their mind all the time, more than anything else. And so then no one will ever admit it, but that's the reality of it. And so, in all fairness, we humans are like that because money is the medium from which we make everything happen for everybody else, so for ourselves and for everybody else, right? So if we're using money to help buy the home that we live in, for our families, to for our basic necessities, right, then it's understandable that money would be the top thing on their minds, right? And so considering that all of us have that in common, once we kind of establish that, maybe not in so much of a direct way, but once we kind of establish that we're all kind of the same in that manner, then then clients are more likely to work. They're more easier to work with, and they're more likely to work with us as long as we kind of establish that human connection first.
Yeah.
Have you found any ways to like use anything you've learned from your career, like in your own personal lives, like helping your finances as well?
Yeah. All of it. I mean, I needed an education in all of it first, there's several of us, like me and then my mentors that trained me in the business. There's several of us that say when we first came into the business, ours was the worst plan we ever worked on, and I would say that's true for me as well, that I was doing a lot of things wrong when I first started learning about finances. And even now, there's always something new to learn. Also, it's a dynamic industry. Things are always changing also. So there's always like new opportunities for investing and to make money. And those are all things that we have to stay on top of. So we're always learning how to make it work better for us and for other people. But I would say there's a lot that I've learned in my personal life. I failed first and then learned, but it's been a good experience and fruitful, because everything that you mess up on that you learn from, you can kind of forward it to other people before they mess up on it, right? So
makes sense.
Yeah.
This is a little bit less related to your own career, but do you find that like since you didn't follow like doctor, engineer, that like with your own children, like you're more supportive of them following other maybe untraditional career paths? Absolutely.
I just think we're going to end up in the career that we're supposed to be in. Okay. Some of us don't take as long to end up in it, and some of us take longer to end up in it. But I do think if we kind of try to force fit our kids into a particular direction, that it's just going to take them longer to arrive at the ultimate thing that they're going to be in anyways. And so, I've always been open to the idea. Now I do, I do make it clear, especially because I am from finance, that whatever career you go into needs to be one where you can make money. Hobbies are hobbies, right? You can always have hobbies, and hopefully you can turn it into something that is money making, and you should enjoy your work. But whatever career path you choose, it should be just that. It should be something. It should be something that makes you money first and can support your household, and then everything else is secondary after that. So that's kind of how I feel about supporting them, in their career. And so I feel like because I've been in this career, I've been able to guide them and show them how to do both at the same time, to pursue the passion that they have, and then also how to monetize on it as well.
Yeah. I feel like that's like the best mindset to have, where it's like you can follow what you want, but make sure like you can live off of it.
Yeah.
If you could tell us one advice for all the youth who are pursuing a non-traditional career, do you have anything that you would tell them?
Yeah, one is, build yourself a support tribe, right? Of just people that are going to keep pushing you, to get better at your craft, right? That's the first thing, is when you want to give up, have people that are going to tell you the truth and make you keep going, because that's just how we are. There's going to be a time where you do want to give up and throw in the towel and then revert back to whatever's comfortable or familiar. And all the best things are always going to be outside of our comfort zones, right? And outside of what's familiar. So you do need to have a great support system that's going to hold you accountable to your own dreams that you have clearly defined for yourself, right? So that's one. And two is I would make self-improvement just a part of your day. At the beginning, what we do is at the beginning of the year, I have like a list of books that I definitely need to get through. And even, there's days where I only have time to read like a page, and I don't have time to read an entire couple of chapters or whatever it may be. But I just make it part of my day because you won't realize the days when you're slipping out of, it happens incrementally, like little by little. Like sometimes you'll just be going on about your routine and you won't realize that you're slipping out of, away from your ultimate goals, But if you kind of have that built into your day, then you'll continue, you'll catch yourself and you'll be more mindful and you'll keep pursuing what you ultimately want, instead of being miserable when you fall out of it, So those are two things I would definitely implement early on, no matter what career you're going into. I would definitely implement that early on, is have yourself your accountability support system and then work on your mind all the time, through self-improvement and reading and listening to podcasts and things like that.
Thank you so much. That was a great advice.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think that's all the questions we have. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing a little bit about what you do.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Yay! Okay, thank you.
It was amazing getting to know Poonam Chhipwadia and her career as a financial advisor.
Thank you so much for listening and stay tuned for our next episode.
Bye!